Brucite. After the cathedral fell over his head, Brucite accepted that he and Teleost could spend a good many rotations together in death before the final judgment ended them. He would miss Anates, but he was glad she would live. It had infuriated him that she had come back for him, even after he had remembered the sign for go. But he was glad Jasper was on the other side. Brucite trusted that he had gotten her to safety. Brucite waited for the weight of the stone to crush him. But it didn't, and soon he was surrounded by the sound of small stones settling into piles. Have I been spared the pain of death? Am I already a ghost? I don't feel dead. When he realized his eyes were closed, he opened them. Rubble froze a foot above his head. Who is the spawn, and who are you? Spawn? Brucite turned to see Plume behind him. Between the unexpected salvation of the defensive barrier and the peculiar nature of her question, his prior urgency and fury subsided. I don't know of any spawn. I do not have the sorcerer's sight, he said. I am Brucite of Fonston, 17th born of Lord Gothite. Why were you fleeing the castle? Because the Vahantry was slaughtering everyone, he said, bewildered. How do I know that you aren't Vahantry? I do not have the brand. Up until a couple turns of the moons ago, I had been training to join King Citrine's army, and before that I lived peacefully with my parents in their manor. If you write them, then they'll confirm it. If you are attacking me in fear of being Vahantry, then I can assume you are not one, and we are both in service to the crowns of the realm. If you aren't Vahantry, then how did you survive the poisoning? Plume asked. I ate queen's lace while on the crusade route, and Master Watercress gave me an immunity to it when he treated me. While I fled with the kid, my friend sacrificed himself to fight them off. He was already dying from the poison. Why were you fleeing east? I was following my companions. They had the idea to head for the ferry, not me. Your group brought a change of clothes with you to make the crossing. That's too convenient to be an accident. We couldn't cross in armor. One of them returned with our fire elemental to acquire the extra supplies and to search for survivors. He found a few. Plume looked him over, measuring him. Why did you attack us? Brucite asked, taking a step back as if he had anywhere to retreat to. Her eyebrows knit together. A demonic curse flung toward me. I was defending myself against it. Brucite recoiled by the growing absurdity of the situation. What are you talking about? Your light-skinned female friend wielded dark magic at me before the elemental got in my way. Brucite shook his head. Anates is no demon worshipper. She hates magic. We had no demon worshippers with us. Or spawn. Plume narrowed her eyes like she didn't believe him. Why is there an elemental traveling with your group? That's a great question. Brucite shrugged. Her eye just followed us one day while we were in Devore. It was the weirdest occurrence. How did the others survive the attack? Brucite considered for a moment. I don't know how Jasper survived. Perhaps Master Watercress gave him the immunity too. Perhaps he built up the immunity previously like Anates. Or maybe he happened to know about herbs that even Basil didn't. I wouldn't be surprised. Before too long had passed, Brucite answered, different ways. Some were preoccupied or weren't forced to drink the water like the rest of the soldiers, like Time and the merchants that were with us. Time, Basil's apprentice? Plume asked. Brucite nodded. You know him? I recognized him. I met Basil's ghost earlier, and he told me how you and Time escaped from the Vahantry. She must still be under the impression that Teleost was Basil. It's good I haven't mentioned Basil by name yet. Even in death, Teleost is still covering for us. That saint. Brucite nearly choked when he asked, how was he doing as a ghost? Much better than the others. He said he was going home. Teleost will never see his family in life again, but at least he can visit them in death. Brucite clenched his hands together, trying to hold himself together. He told me you were friends. I want to believe that, but the situation is too strange. I have a hard time understanding how you all happened to get lucky when everyone else did not. 8 of us, or 9 including you, surviving out of thousands is worse odds than the hand of luck would deal. It's a miracle more hadn't survived. Perhaps some will recover. All were dead. The Vahantry made sure of that. I buried them before coming. Thank you. That was noble of you. I wish I had thought of that. Reflecting on the situation, Brucite became infuriated. It's not right. The High King grants them mercy, and they repay him by wiping out his forces and leaving the realm vulnerable to the threat of the Rhyseglae. Do they have a love for chaos? Why would they do this? He was teetering on edge. I don't know. I'm trying to discover that answer for myself. Perhaps the rogue Rhyseglae are funding them. Brucite was heartbroken. The Vahantri would sell out their own brothers for gem? She shook her head, and her unruly hair, which had been tied up in a bun, came out. It was the same unraveling Brucite felt within himself. So how do we get out of here? Brucite asked after a moment. The cathedral's rubble surrounded them on every side of the barrier. I have to get back to the others as soon as possible, so they don't leave on the ferry without me. I won't be able to find them again otherwise. I can get us out, but I need to sleep to recover. I'll kill myself if I use any more magic without it. Just maintaining the weight above us is making me pass out from exhaustion. Brucite closed his eyes and frowned. The alternative is that we're crushed to death, she said in response. No, I appreciate that you've saved my life with the magic you have left. Please don't think I'm not grateful for that. But I've been separated from my betrothed. She and the rest of them will likely assume I'm dead and move on without me. I'm sorry to hear that, but you can send a letter once we reach the impenetrable castle. I wouldn't even know where to send it. Why the impenetrable castle? If your companions have moved on, I'd appreciate your testimony regarding the events surrounding the crusade. As you were there in person, you could answer questions that I cannot, and that I haven't thought to ask you now. It might bring the Vahantri to justice. That's what I told my friends we should do. This will be the perfect way to avenge Teleos' death, in addition to all the others. If the High King appreciates my testimony, then he might have the High Transportation Mage transport me to the front lines in Sovane or back to Vetron in gratitude. She hesitated. If you are lying about being Vahantri, please don't kill me in my sleep. The barrier will collapse on you. From what I can tell, we have at least one story worth of stone, and part of one of the towers bearing down on us. It'd be instant death. I'm not Vahantri, and I would not attempt to kill you, regardless of whether my life depended on your survival or not. Even though my well-being does not impact yours, please also do not slay me. I doubt you would, given that you could have ended me at any moment of your choosing. But still. Plume nodded, and they both settled down to rest. The following morning, Brucite woke long before Plume did. The cold stone floor left him aching, only a minor downgrade from sleeping in a tent, though he had sorely missed the feeling of cuddling with Anates. Fully alert, he took stock of what he had left on his person in the low light. One sconce within the barrier was perfectly intact where all the others had been destroyed. But he didn't want to think about that, how close he had come to joining Teleos in the afterlife. He had too much left to do to die now. He had to see his parents again. He had to attend his brothers' and sisters' weddings. He wanted to meet his future nieces and nephews. He'd like to become a knight someday. If he wanted to excel in his career, he might stay in Citrane's service long enough to earn the position of the Major General of Vetron. Most importantly, he needed to meet the criteria to become a Sicoli and wed Anates. Then he wanted to raise their children and grandchildren. What will the new plan be, given the ruined state of the regional armies? Regardless, I'll endure any obstacle to return to her. If I have to fight off every rogue Rhyseglae with my own 2 hands, then I'll become the best beast slayer this world has ever seen. Circling back to reality, Brucite realized he had the equivalent of 200 coins worth of gem with him. He had a few scraps of leather from when he had made Anates' hair tie, and besides his clothes, that was it. He played with the leather strips for a bit, tying them into various knots. He also touched the defensive barrier to see what it was like. As expected, it was smooth and cool, but visually, it moved like liquid glass. He traced the decorative lines in the wood trim, wondering if either Asiel or Leilila remembered this forgotten place in their long rotations. He prayed to them that he would escape from the cathedral alive, that Anates would be safe, and that Teleos would find peace. After the conclusion of his prayers, he realized he should have been inventing explanations for any loose ends he might have left off in his story. He was most concerned he would get tripped up with the Basil and Teleos mix-up, but he couldn't envision anything else Plume might ask about them. At least the stagnant cathedral air staved off his hunger until Plume finally stirred. It took a moment of groggy scanning for her to remember her surroundings. "Thanks for not murdering me in my sleep, Brucite." "Thank you for maintaining the barrier and not slaying me as well." She stood and stretched out. "Ready to get out of here?" "This sconce has almost burned out, and I've run out of ideas to occupy myself. So yes." Plume took in a deep breath, closed her eyes, and probed the weight of the material above her. "Can you do it?" "I've shouldered far more on my sorcery before, but I want to be smart about our exit point. If I don't have to burn through more magic than would be necessary, then I don't want to. It would be foolish to punch a hole in the exterior just to destabilize the remaining tower and catch the weight of it in addition to everything in between. The wreckage will shift, but I want to minimize it as much as possible." "Makes sense, I'll leave you to it." Brucite had no idea how long that would take, but he'd leave her alone while she touched along the wall. So long as they got out of this alive, that was all he cared about. Stone rumbled and glass shattered. Natural light flooded his eyes. "Okay, done." She disappeared through an aperture. "That was fast." "I was an architectural mage before I studied combative magic." "I suppose that is how you knew how to make the barrier." "Partially. Almost every sorcerer learns something of barrier magic. Even though it's technically a defensive technique, it's useful for every discipline. It's applied differently based on the mage class." Brucite imagined additional uses. He supposed Basil had used a defensive barrier while sparring, but that wasn't for healing. Brucite wished Basil had cast such a barrier while they were escaping to prevent the floor from falling. It might have saved Garantor's life. For example, combative mages use barriers to concentrate their attacks and protect surrounding targets, while architectural mages can use barriers for levitating beams and themselves into hard-to-reach places. "You can fly?" Brucite asked. "It's not flying, but it feels like it sometimes." "No wonder you made High Combative Mage so young. It'd be terrifying to have fire raining down from the heavens. Could you imagine how the rogue Rhysogli would look? They'd scramble instantly." "I doubt the generals would want me to place myself in such a vulnerable location. I'd be an accessible target for the archers." "Do Rhysogli have archers? Can they even fire a bow?" Brucite asked. "Wouldn't their claws snap the string?" "I don't know." "Have you seen a Rhysogli before?" Brucite asked. "One lived in Athlia. I met them once. The city folk were being cruel to them, though." "Because of the northern rogues?" Brucite wondered if that was a stupid question. "Yes." "Shame. People too readily give in to prejudice." Being honest with himself, Brucite wouldn't have reconsidered if he were in the same situation. As far as he had been concerned, the entire race of Rhysogli had been the enemy since the crusade began. But he recognized the flaw in his reasoning once he understood Plume's experience. His gut had made the emotional fallacy without his brain's permission. It wasn't fair to judge all Rhysogli based on the actions of a single group. "It was beyond prejudice," she said. "It is astounding how far one can tip their scale of morality and still think themselves justified. As much as we need to stop them, I am partially grateful to the rogues. If they weren't stirring trouble in the north, I never would have met my fiancée. The woman you claimed attacked you with the curse." "I want to check on that when we get out." "What?" "The damage the curse did. Maybe you can make sense of it once you see it." Brucite was curious what they would find. When they climbed their way to the surface, Plume dug out the main entrance and found the sleeping chamber was perfectly intact. Plume pointed to the section of wall near where she had entered the room. "Do you see what I mean? Look at this damage." Brucite put a hand against the cold stone, testing it out. "Where?" She tried to touch the stone too, and her hand collided with the wall as if she expected to pass through it. "That blasted mirror!" she muttered to herself. "It was just an illusion." "What mirror?" "I found a cursed mirror in my room back at the castle, and I fear my eyesight has been cursed. I suspect that has something to do with this. I can't trust any of what I've seen since I bought it." "That's a tricky way to live." "I know how to counteract illusions, I just have to do it more often." "You trust that I am no illusion, then?" Brucite asked. "I know you're not, but the mirror might have created the spawn wing hallucination as well. There was a member of your group with golden brown skin and amber eyes, correct?" "Yes, you did not hallucinate him, but there's no mention that he's a spawn.
Master Watercress would have identified him.
Who is he?
Teleost, Brucite lied. He was born to poor fisherman parents in Sithica. He's lived there his whole life.
She nodded. Under the premise that the mirror has been cursing my vision, this all makes much more sense.
I'm sorry to hear that you've been cursed, but I do assure you that none of us were associated with the Vahantri attacks.
I believe you, and don't worry about me. I know where I can find a blessing to counter this. She huffed a breath. At the same time, I'll be seeking out whoever cursed my mirror. Relief overcame Brucite that they had resolved the misunderstanding.
Glad to hear. Now let's get out of this forsaken cathedral and enjoy the light of day.
Brucite had been correct that everyone had long cleared out by the time they surfaced. The items removed from the sleeping chamber had confirmed it. He was grateful everyone else had made it out. He would have been heartbroken if Anantes had died while he lived. On the trip back to the impenetrable castle, midway between the first and second sun high, Plume asked, "Why the grimace?" Brucite failed to rid himself of the unpleasant expression.
Just concerned about my fiancée.
What's she like? Plume asked.
Anantes? She's brilliant. She's a hunter and a fighter. Much better than I am. She's been helping me improve.
She's beautiful, Plume said.
I think so. I've liked her since I was little. That's the craziest part. She remembered me too, and we worked out.
That's sweet.
How about you, Plume? Do you have a significant other?
Brucite hoped it wasn't too forward to ask, but as they were already on the topic, he didn't want to seem rude by failing to express interest. She grimaced.
Sort of. Will they be the one?
Based off of Plume's expression, Brucite had a feeling she was going to say no. I don't know. He's been distant lately, and me leaving to fight the rogues won't strengthen our relationship. The hardest part is that being in a relationship was his idea, and then he lost interest as I became invested.
If I were you, I'd end it. You are the high combative mage, and he's not treating you as you wish. If it's not too bold of me, in addition to being impressively accomplished, you also have a strong moral character and seem to be intelligent, from what I can tell. And you too are beautiful. If he doesn't worship you, he's not good enough.
Is that how you are with your fiancée? Plume asked.
Oh, yes, I would do anything for her.
Brucite smiled up at the canopy of dogwood trees. He wished they were blooming into their fabled white blossoms, but green leaves covered the canopy instead.
White blossoms would be beautiful in Anantes' hair when we wed.
Plume did not share his dreamy tone. What were you trying to communicate in the hallway before we were separated from them? Yanked back to reality, Brucite answered.
I told her to run.
Using gestures.
It's part of the carriage tradition. She's been teaching me some of that as well.
So that's how she's so much better at fighting than a noble-born and trained soldier such as yourself.
Yes, he smiled. Also why she's anti-magic.
And does she act similarly toward you? It'd only be fair to expect the same.
She shows affection differently than I do, but I know she loves me.
How so?
I prefer to spend time with her and tell her with words. She shows me with actions. She prefers when I show her with actions too, but it's difficult to find deeds she appreciates. I'm working on it, but it comes slowly.
You're working on many things, Plume said.
I strive for constant self-improvement. It's part of the tenets of angelism, but it helps that the others are so knowledgeable and willing to help. Take Basil. While he taught Time how to be a healing mage, the rest of us learned too.
Is it tough to remember him?
No.
Brucite could have hit himself over his casual tone.
I have to think of Basil as being deceased rather than Teleost.
What did the others teach you?
Teleost taught me to fish. I wasn't very good at it, and I'm certain I made him frustrated. I got the hook stuck in his hand a few times.
He sounds like a saint, and I would know.
That's right. You were recently sainted for saving Ether's life, correct?
Yes, but if I were in that position, I would have left you the second time I got stuck with the hook.
You'd let me slide the first time?
Sure, that could be attributed to an accident. After the first time, though, that's pure carelessness.
I should have slowed down more and listened to what he was saying.
Basil had been annoyed too, because he had to keep healing Teleost. I miss the times with them. They were fun. I'm sorry for your loss.
There's nothing to be done for it now, other than to tell the authorities what happened, so they can find the culprits.
Fair. Brucite and Plume spoke about the others who had been traveling with him, and how Plume had obtained her spot as the High Combative Mage. They also briefly ate whatever they could find on the road. It was mostly plants Brucite identified as being edible, but Plume trapped a couple rabbits inside barriers. She couldn't bring herself to kill them, so Brucite killed and skinned them the same way Anates had taught him. Plume cooked them with magical flames, and then they were on their way. When they arrived at the castle, Plume briefly explained to the defensive mages what had happened, and they let her pass into the innermost part of the castle with Brucite. She marched them to Admonition's office and demanded an audience with the High King.
"You must explain the Crusade's fate immediately," Admonition said. "Rumors have begun floating around that must be addressed before false accusations fly from the other kingdom's monarchs. We need to know exactly what happened. I will assemble an emergency meeting with the High Council straight away. Both of you proceed directly to the main strategizing room."
Brucite was excited to receive the opportunity to enter the High King's tower. Its tip balanced precariously behind the stairs leading into it. The meeting rooms were lit much better than the rest of the castle, and Brucite indulged in the sweet treats awaiting them inside on silver platters. Brucite was impressed as B ranks filled the room. It was intimidating for someone of his lowly T rank to be in the same vicinity, let alone address the lot of them. While they waited for the High King, he fantasized about how he might also earn a sainthood for describing crucial details of the attack and playing an essential role in getting the crusade back on track. Plume regarded Master Yarrow as coldly as Brucite did.
"It's a shame that he's here."
When the High King entered, he asked,
"Yarrow, where is Master Gentian?"
"In the middle of a complex surgery. I'm attending in his place, Your Highness."
"Is everyone else accounted for?"
Admonition answered,
"Yes, Your Highness." "Good. Now, Plume, what happened?"
Between her and Brucite, they explained their experiences. Master Yarrow scowled throughout the recounting, and specifically had not taken well to the claim that Master Watercress had given Brucite an immunity to Queen's Lace. "With greatest respect, Your Highness, this child is lying. There's no possible way that Watercress could have cured the boy in time, and given his body the ability to break down the poison forever onward. It simply cannot be done. The time frame does not hold up. He must be covering up some truth, perhaps an involvement with the Vahantry. Avoiding the poisoned water is the only way he could have survived." Brucite couldn't believe that Yarrow had insulted his honor. He was about to defend himself when the High King defended him instead.
"I appreciate your perspective on the matter, Yarrow. I will ask Master Gentian for a second opinion later. Master Watercress does have an excellent reputation, however, and it is one of the reasons I requested him on my staff. I would not be the least bit surprised if he had crafted an antidote under such tight restrictions." Master Yarrow narrowed his eyes, and suspicion deepened his frown. "If it would help to corroborate my story, I will willingly consume the plant to prove to everyone that I have the immunity I claim."
"Given that the Vahantry have purchased all sources of Queen's Lace from here to Sapphire, there is no way to conduct such a test."
"If it can be transported here, I will eat it."
"We would not waste a transportation mage's magic for such a trivial matter," Admonition said.
"We also would not have you risk your life to prove your innocence, even if you believe it poses no possible peril to yourself."
The High King sent a pointed look to his High Vizier. Brucite admired the High King's steadiness when confronted with the decimation of 5 regional forces, including his own.
"I find it suspicious that Devore sends only a fraction of their force, enough to prevent us from justifying repercussions, and then mysteriously the whole party is attacked," General B1 said.
"Did you not listen to Plume? It was the work of the Vahantry," B3 said. "But who is funding them?" the High Financier asked.
"And who cursed her?" B4 asked.
"Considering the sheer numbers, I can't imagine an archdemon isn't behind this. Decimating our faith's holy army is exactly what they do," the High Priest claimed. "Perhaps one of them has a curse that operates opposite of Esiel's, poisoning water rather than cleansing it."
"It's more possible that the Rhysogli would be the ones to blame. They'd have the most to gain by funding the Vahantry. Perhaps it was orchestrated by the civilized Rhysogli and their cities.
They could assume that without the deterrence of our army, they can enjoy the spoils as well, B2 said.
All of these thoughts are worth weighing. We need more evidence to move forward with a punishment, regardless of who wears the Vahantry's mask. But I would like to know, Plume, Brucite, who do you think is behind this?
The High King's gaze rested squarely between them. Brucite couldn't believe the ruler of the realm was asking for his input. Plume answered first. It could be an actor we haven't considered. Someone who would benefit from us blaming Devor or the Raisaglai. Perhaps someone who wants to challenge you for the high throne. Perhaps a northern kingdom that hasn't sent forces yet, but knew of Devor's slight. The High King exchanged a glance with admonition. Gears whirled behind his eyes.
Brucite? I don't know who, but they've been playing this game since Vetron. The Vahantry attacks on the Crusade started back then, but stopped for a while. During that lull, they probably got the idea for the poisoning and collected stores of it to prepare for the massive attack.
How interesting you've worked that out, Yarrow said, with accusation in his voice.
You find it interesting that I paid attention when my fellow soldiers were being slaughtered? Any soldier could have pieced together the same.
How inconvenient there are no others left, Yarrow clicked his tongue.
Yarrow, I asked for his opinion, the High King chided. Do not suspect him for being astute. Whoever it is, they're crafty, and they're willing to wait for what they want. That's my opinion.
Brucite swept his gaze around the room and ended on the High King, ever so briefly, as to not give offense.
I'll consider these messages. Admonition, please find arrangements for Brucite for the duration of his stay here, the High King said. Plume will return to the accommodations in her usual room.
Guards escorted Brucite through the castle. When he parted from Plume, he waved farewell to her in the dim light of the halls.
Good luck finding your blessing.
Thank you! Good luck finding your fiancé! She returned the gesture and took a corridor that led toward the mage's tower.
I won't need luck for that. I'll find her.
Brucite and the guards wound down through layer after layer of the castle.
How deep does the impenetrable castle go? Could I send a letter before we reach my quarters? Brucite asked.
No, we're under strict orders, one guard said. Brucite accepted that. He could do it once he knew where he'd be staying. Although, if his memory served him from his prior visit, the mail post was also in the mage's tower, in the opposite direction. But the longer they walked, the deeper into the castle they descended. Dismal darkness shrouded the corridors, and they passed by prisoners in spacious cells. They mumbled as the small procession passed through. I couldn't have gotten a worse room in the castle if I must cross through the dungeons to get there. These will be much lower than my last lodgings had been. I suppose I shouldn't complain too much. After all, the High King is hosting me unexpectedly. They soon passed into an even darker dungeon. It was hard to see much of anything, but the groans coming from the prisoners terrified Brucite. Dangling figures swayed down the corridor, and he swore they were hangmen, but his mind couldn't reconcile that. The High King didn't hang people. He had outlawed that rotations ago. And yet, his eyes did not betray him. Still they wound their way down further. Brucite feared where they were going. The guards stopped in front of a cell and ordered him inside, confirming his suspicion.
Why am I being jailed?
Brucite asked. The High King said I would be provisioned. For protection until we ensure you are not Vahantry. Brucite stood, gaping in absolute bewilderment, but whether they couldn't see his expression in the dark lamplight or didn't care, he could not tell.
Fine. You will quickly learn that I am no Vahantry member. Search my body right now for the brand, if it would speed up the process.
He tried to remain reasonable, even though they were being extremely unreasonable.
In.
Brucite obliged. The cell reeked of corpses. Then again, the whole dungeon did, but this cell had 4 decomposing men wrapped in their chains. One man still breathed. Once the guards left, the man said,
I haven't seen someone so surprised to have been taken captive in my whole life.
The man's voice sounded familiar.
You really must not know a whisper of woe after all. I have no idea what you're referring to, but how can you see anything at all down here?
Brucite's eyes still hadn't adjusted. The man huffed.
I'm accustomed to living my life in the shadows. You've seen many people taken captive then, have you? Few, but some. Typically, if you can see them getting hauled in, You're an idiot for not utilizing the distraction to escape. The man shuffled in his quarter of the cell. What did you get captured over? Brucite asked. Are you aware of the crusade attack that happened yesterday? Intimately. That. You are Vahantri? Brucite asked with trepidation. He backed away from the man into the cell wall. He knew him. This was the same man who had slain Teleost. Brucite would have strangled him to avenge his friend, but temporary blindness disabled him. He'd be at a severe disadvantage. The Vahantri man didn't seem keen on harming him currently, so Brucite would maintain the peace. Yep, thanks to the wounds your friend inflicted, the Imperial Guards caught me before I could get away. I couldn't run with my mangled knee. I never saw any Imperial Guards. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. By the judgment in your voice, I take it that this is the case of mistaken identity, and you shouldn't be here either. Indeed, and I'm certain I'll be cleared, Brucite said. I've never seen you before, so I might buy it. Then again, I'm from the northern chapter. There are multiple Vahantri guilds? Oh yeah, 5 of them. Main headquarters is situated in the pocket of Devor, mainly working for King Pyrope. Is that who's to blame for the attack? Nah, this is someone new. They have a funny way of operating. How's that? They demanded helmeted heads and a hag. We doubted she was altogether human. Collected them in a cart after giving us gem in payment. Anyone paying you to kill soldiers is at least part monster. Heh, you're pretty naive, kid. Your king's doing that, isn't he? Paying you to kill others, and you follow him anyway. I believe in the cause. Why? The Vahantri man sounded incredulous. Because I care about the faith. Oh, you're hopeless. How'd you lose yours? Never had it. I wasn't indoctrinated as a tot, and I didn't develop it as a thinking adult because I realized that the angels weren't here for me. Other people might get their prayers answered, but mine never were. Did you give them a reason to help you? What? Angels were once human. They can be selfish creatures like the rest of us. You need to give them encouragement to help. That's absurd. They're supposed to help because of their virtuous nature or some bullshit. If you were a spawn, would you? If you could bless or damn whoever you wished, where would you start? With random strangers? Or with those who worshipped you? Perhaps you're not as naive as I thought. Brucite. I'm Lynx myself. Lynx. Like it. The Northern Guild takes our name after feline predators. Lynx could also be a merchant name. Certainly, because we are merchants. We're paid for our unique services and procured products. That's an interesting way to look at it. Not all of us can be born into privilege, Brucite. Lynx's voice sneered at him. What does that have to do with anything? That's the difference between our lives before this cell. You've never had to struggle for anything in your life. Never been starving, never wondered if you'd make it through the night. The crusade attack was probably the closest you've ever come to feeling of despair. Yet you escaped that too somehow. Luck has been with you your whole life, young nobleman, and now you've finally seen what it looks like to run out. Brucite didn't reply. Lynx shifted. Given that you're in here, I know who financed us now. Who? Who would jail their own blood after being a victim of an attack? Who? Brucite repeated. Open your eyes, kid. The man who wanted to kill you all off and realized he had an extra string that slipped through. It would make sense why the Imperial Guard chased us off after we had killed everyone else. They were lying in wait. It was a trap to do away with you and then to do away with us. Eliminate everyone who knew. Are you accusing the High King? Either him or someone high in his council. I doubt anything happens without the High King's knowledge, though. Man's as sharp as a hawk. Why would he decimate 5 of his own kingdom's regional armies? Consolidate power? I don't know. You have no faith in any regard, do you? How do you mean? You don't believe in the realm's leaders either. How would you explain the Imperial Guard, then? I don't know. Perhaps a corrupt vizier. Perhaps a corrupt mage. But I have faith that High King Panite will do what is best for everyone. And if he believes punishing you is best for everyone, because he labors under the impression that you are Vahantri like me, then I will respect my punishment, for I respect the law. Even if they're false charges. Yes, I doubt that would happen. However, given that our High King is a proper ruler, he would not allow an innocent to rot down here. Lynx just laughed. Neither of us is finding freedom, kid. We've seen the skeletons in their dungeons. They'll kill us for certain. There is no death penalty. What did you make of the corpses on your way down, then? Or of the carcasses in this cell? Intimidation tactics, probably to coax stupid criminals into confessing their crimes. I hope you're right, Brucite. Let's have faith in that together. Time passed. Lynx sang some familiar and unfamiliar songs. Brucite did not join in. Eventually, guards came for Lynx. I demand to know when I will receive the opportunity to speak to someone about these accommodations. There has been a misunderstanding. Brucite attempted to appeal to unsympathetic guards. After they carted Lynx away, Brucite prayed to Asiel for mercy and understanding. When the guards returned to throw Lynx back in the cell, he didn't move for a long time. The slightest effort had him grunting with pain. Brucite's eyes had adjusted, and he still considered killing Lynx in retribution for Teleost, but he thought it would be more of a blessing to ease Lynx's suffering. So he would not bloody his hands. He hadn't feared Lynx would harm him either. The massive man could barely move. They ate in silence when the guards came with food. After a struggling soup spoon missed Lynx's mouth a third time and splashed the dungeon floor with the cold liquid, Brucite fed him. Lynx grumbled, I shouldn't bother to eat. I doubt my body will make use of the nourishment. You should take it. Don't talk like that. We're going to make it out of here. Lynx scoffed. It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing matters. Brucite was taken aback. The opinionated man had broken. Brucite feared a similar situation would happen to him soon. But they'd have nothing to gain by torturing me. The next morning, Lynx was gone when Brucite awoke. A new corpse swung by the neck outside the cell. To his surprise, Brucite shed a tear for the man who murdered his friend. In such a disconcerting place, Lynx had been company at least. Now, Brucite was alone in a dark cell, with the threat of his future on constant display just beyond the bars. That was Brucite's first fissure. From then on, he prayed to every archangel and archdemon, but mostly to Dantrima for liberation. He regretted not learning the archdemon's words of wisdom when he'd had the chance. He knew Anates and Teleos had delivered them to Basil's enslaved friend, but he had never imagined he would personally need them, so he hadn't asked what they were. Beyond that, he never would have anticipated being desperate enough to seek help from the enemy of his faith. Lynx had been right about one thing. Brucite was incredibly naive. Brucite sat in his cell. He wasn't sure how much time passed, nor was he certain how frequently meals came. The meals were the only indication that the guards hadn't forgotten him. They never visited him any other time. He supposed that was a blessing. Lynx's body decomposed, and the new smell made him nauseous. Brucite made a personal rule to only puke in the shitting corner. He hadn't developed a routine because he couldn't tell where one day had ended and another began, but he made sure to practice certain habits. He prayed, he meditated, and he practiced his sword-fighting stances with an imaginary blade. He performed as many of the exercises from his morning routine as he could in the confined space. He recounted what he had learned from Anates of the Carrie language and from Basil of the healing arts. If nothing else, it kept his mind busy. He rehearsed conversations he wished he could have had with Lynx. Sometimes they were logical arguments, but the longer Brucite sat in his cell, the more they devolved into emotional rants. 7 meals later, Brucite had a visitor. Brucite? The healing mage, Master Yarrow, asked. What are you doing in there? Brucite scrambled to his feet to meet the familiar face at the bars. Hope welled in his gut. The guards have mistaken me for a Vahantry member. Oh, this arrangement simply won't do, and we still have further questions regarding the attack. I will speak to a guard about letting you out immediately. Thank you, Master Yarrow. He nodded and then took his leave. Brucite awaited eagerly to leave the small cell he had grown accustomed to. He could not wait to bathe. He would sleep on a real bed rather than the stone floor. He would return to the sun's light. He could go searching for Anates. His optimism soared. It was longer than he expected before Master Yarrow returned with a guard. I thought you had forgotten me, he admitted. The master's voice held pity. Of course not. I was explaining the situation. Brucite wouldn't complain any further. The gate's opening groan was ecstasy. Come with me, Master Yarrow said, and Brucite followed. They hadn't traveled out of the dungeons entirely, as Brucite had expected, but they came to a brightly lit, sterile room with another man garbed in silver mage's robes waiting inside. Take a seat up there.
Master Yarrow pointed to a plain table in the center. I have some questions to ask you, and it's critical you only tell me the truth.